Welcome to the Road Hunters podcast. This is your go-to source for incredible stories, diverse perspectives, and a deep dive into the world of motorsport. I'm your host, Jonathan Bennett, and joining me on this adventure is also Mr. Andrew. Now, each week, we will bring you exclusive interviews with passionate individuals from all over all different aspects of the racing community. And our goal is to showcase incredible talents, the dedication, and the stories that make motorsport so special to us all. I'm thrilled to be an ambassador for Driven Minds. It's an organisation dedicated to promoting and providing mental health support across the motorsport community. If you ever see any of the Driven Minds lot, or myself included, make sure you come up to us and say hi. And together we're working to break down stigmas and raise awareness and ensure that everyone in the paddock has access to the resources and support they need to both thrive on and off the track. So buckle up, join us on this exciting journey as we explore the incredible world of motorsport, one story at a time. So don't forget to subscribe to the Road Hunters podcast on your favourite platform, the YouTube channel, which also has additional stuff, and follow us on social media for the latest updates and behind the scenes. And this season, I'm personally supported by UBC Brakes and Carbon Positive Motorsport. So now, let's dive into today's episode. Just before we get started, everybody, whoa. Just to give you an update on this episode, there was a slight lag issue. Now, while it kind of has recorded perfectly fine, what it's meant is on the lag on my side, sometimes I'm a little bit late. So just bear that in mind when you're watching it. Not quite sure what's caused it. It was just a bit of a one-off. However, now we're into next week's episode. Goodbye, everybody. Love yous. Welcome back, everybody, to another week. And we are joined on the Road Hunters podcast by Will Bonfield, who, well, I'll let you do an introduction to yourself, actually, Will. Who's better than yourself to do the elevator pitch of why you're such an epic guy and on this channel?
Such an epic guy. It's a pretty big build-up. I am a time attack racer. I was runner-up in Pocket Rocket Naturally Aspirated last year, and Instagram is relatively okay with Ghetto Aero, and it's just sort of growing from there. Yeah.
Yep.
Time attack.
Yeah, I think it's like I said. Obviously, I found you on Instagram, and that's it was quite a cool seeing your car. So for those, basically, we're going to kind of go into a bit about what time attack is, which obviously kind of comes from my background as well. So I'm really into that. I'm going to go into your car more and go through all these things in the build up. But first of all, we have the icebreaker questions.
Okay.
Now, Andy would normally give these, but however, he's not here because he is still working currently. So we're going for the first one. What's one of your favourite cars of all time?
Dead easy. RS200. And I know that's very much down your line, but yeah, Ford RS200 is my number one favourite car of all time.
Oh, yes.
I had a little Matchbox toy with the blue and white tiger stripes, and I played with it until it fell apart, and I literally fell into bits.
Yes.
Also, I'm old enough to remember Duke VHS videos of crashes. And
Yep.
there was Martin Shanker, I think, was and they just used to have huge
the Rallycross
crashes
driver
in the Rallycross RS200s, and that's where it came from. So
yeah, insane car. They're amazing cars. One of Andy's favourite cars. He might not listen to this, but if he doesn't, I'm working on a project with a little RS200 and some other stuff actually for him at the minute. But I love that car. I always think what was my favourite Group B, and it's a mix-up between that and the 6R4 and the T16-205. They all have this certain feel, but the RS200 had a certain stupidity to it as well.
It wasn't as no disrespect to a 6R4. I drive a hatchback now, but it wasn't a hatchback. It was purpose built for it.
Yes.
And there was all the thing was that the one that got Group B banned was the fact that Essex Police had some for the road. It was a special car, and it still is a
That's
special
it.
car. And
I was thinking about. I've got some pictures of it,
I'm a Ford boy. Well, sort of now, a hybrid, but
A hybrid. You are a hybrid. We'll get onto that. We love hybrid. I thought it'll probably be somewhere in this book, but it's probably there for those on YouTube. You can Google it. Google RS200 and Rallycross. They're epic. Right. So you've got your RS200. Where are you
yeah,
going to go and drive it?
that's a tough
Oh, that's
question.
big breath
Um,
wondering.
that's a really good question because I don't drive fast on the road. Used to do when I was a kid. You certainly can't now. There's no way you can do it safely. And so to have a serious performance car, you can't push its
Let's
boundaries
say
on the road.
hypothetically. Absolutely agree. I think if
But
we go
yeah,
hypothetically, if anywhere could be closed off.
somewhere like this Stelvio Pass, or I think hairpins, certainly low to medium speed stuff, so you could
Yeah,
use power around, drift it around in a rally sort of style. Um, yeah, probably somewhere like that, but nowhere specific. That's a
quality.
really good question. That is.
Yeah.
There's the
No,
Keithley
I like that.
bypass.
A good answer.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, not far from here. Absolutely.
yeah.
So what have we got next? If you could choose any celebrity to be your co-driver, who would it be and why?
Ooh,
Could be
that's
car celebrity, could be, household celebrity. What's got you
these are
thinking?
tough questions. I didn't expect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah,
So
to
when I
be
did them,
your
I approached them to Andy as being quick fire questions, and they were just like, "No, they're not. They're really not quick fire
yeah,
questions, but they get
absolutely.
you talking, get you relaxed."
Yeah. The is it the same question? Most inspirational to me is Senna.
Yeah,
Um, but I'm of was a big
excellent
Formula One
answer.
fan when I was younger. Through Mansell, just old enough for Mansell. Certainly Damon Hill.
Hmm.
What Jensen did at Braun that year was
Yep, same.
unbelievable. And but Senna's this mythical. When you watch
Yeah.
the laps, and it was still H pattern gearboxes, and he was left foot braking to
Mm.
keep the boost, to keep the revs up, to keep the boost up, and that kind of thing. It's is Are modern day drivers faster in modern day machinery? Yes, no. Are people faster on equal machinery? Yes, no. Senna's to me is inspirational in that he has a you can't put your finger on. It's difficult to put into words, but you can't put your finger on what he had. It was just instinctive. It was just thing. And I suppose the closest driver to him now,
Yeah.
despite his age, in Formula One terms, is probably Alonso. Um, he's consistently very
Yes,
fast,
true.
and in a winning car, he has the proven ability to continue to remain at the top of the field no matter how old he is.
Mm.
He was so good that he changed the driving style when he had the Renault that he won in. He changed. I don't know if you knew. He changed the driving style. He used to F1's all about smooth steering inputs, and he used to turn the steering wheel really quick to force it to understeer because it had a weakness where it wouldn't warm up its front tires. But he was that good. He found a way to drive around that. And I think in
Oh,
today's mechanical, Verstappen's a
wow.
robot. I think Alonso's probably the closest to that, but Senna
Yeah,
is, yeah. And Colin
yeah.
McRae. I
No,
mean,
I think I'd agree with that.
yeah,
That kind of,
Colin McRae
yeah,
was that
absolutely.
that
Colin
if
McRae, you
in
can't
doubt,
say no.
flat out. And again, being a Ford boy, I loved the Martini Focus. When he changed, I know everybody associates Colin with the Subaru,
Yeah,
which is a a great car, but the Martini Focus was special.
yeah, I love that car. I think I love Mark One Focuses.
Yeah,
Like it was my first proper car I bought and started to play around with. I'd have another one.
yeah,
I love them. I think they're incredible. I think they're great. They look so different at the time.
yeah,
Unlike cars now, which I tend to find are quite similar. Um, and I think Alonso, like you said with F1, that was the kind of period I was into F1. Mansell, Schumacher, Hill, all that kind of stuff. And it is very different. But yeah, Alonso's just great, and he's just a goat. Simple
yeah.
as that. Um, right, next one then. If you could compete in any multisport event from the past, what would it be?
It's does it have to be from the past? What if it's still going on? Yeah,
No,
that's not the question. Just answer the question.
that's fine.
Um,
Well,
Although I
technically,
still
it
don't
could
drive
be
fast,
if it's still going on, but it was still one of the events.
I'd like the 24 hours at Nürburgring, the N24. I think is the pinnacle of
Yeah, yeah,
circuit racing because it's so difficult. You are flat out on the longest, most difficult racetrack
yeah,
there is, and overnight, faster cars, different classes, weather changes from one lap to the next. I think that is the pinnacle of
yeah,
motorsport, and
yeah,
testing both the manufacturer to the team to the absolute limit and the driver. I think that's the pinnacle of motorsport.
yeah. Absolutely, I would agree. It's on my bucket list to go. I want to be there, the party the night before on the track, and just full on have it. I think, I mean, I love the Norris life. I want to drive it, but I just
Yeah,
think, yeah, I am in absolute agreement. So far, so good. I'm enjoying these. Okay, we're getting near to the end one. So if you could create your own motorsport event or car related event, what would it be and what would it be called? Nobody's actually given me a name yet, however, because I've realised that's really difficult. So we'll just go for what would it be?
probably be a time attack style event, um,
Mhm.
and it would be about. Although a lot of people call it, it's not real racing, which we'll come on to because it's not necessarily wheel to wheel. I think there's something very pure about the
Mhm.
racing the clock aspect, and what people forget, and they get caught up in the competition,
Yep.
is that the idea of, for me, what it's about is about being faster than you were the last time you went round. And so I think time attack style events have the possibility to be open to everybody, and that attracts me. Motorsport is
Yeah. I
a
mean,
it's seen as a niche. It's seen as a something only very rich people can do, or you get scholarships. And actually, club motorsport, I've met friends for
mhm.
life. And so I think if it was my event, I'd want to do something that
Yeah.
was on a time attack style basis, but really easy to access. Other than safety, very few rules and regulations, and yeah,
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, if you take something like Race of Champions, which is effectively clocks,
yeah,
not that it's head to head, but it's not necessarily door to door. Like there's a lot in that on how to get that perfect timing so you can achieve the maximum speed without any and to stay that hyper focused, even if it's just one lap,
yeah.
is the heck of an achievement still. Definitely. And then lastly of these questions, and it'll be a lot easier, I promise. Um, What's the most funniest or embarrassing thing that's happened to you at a racetrack or event?
How long have you got? That's it. Loads. I've run out of fuel several times. I'm a tinkerer, and I always like to try and run as little fuel as possible in the final. And I have run out of fuel and been towed
Yeah.
in at least 3 times that I can think of. I've been on a track day, and one of my very, very good friends, and we're still friends, fortunately. Uh, we'd done an oil change, and he hadn't tightened the sump plug up. So we're down Cadwell, down Park Straight at Cadwell, and there was a bang and a funny
Oh,
noise and full of smoke, and we pulled off. Uh, and I'd driven the car 2 hours to get there, and was driving home, and we thought it was dead. We thought it was bottom end, and then we looked and looked, and there's oil everywhere. We couldn't find it. We cleaned it all up, and then in the end, there was no sump plug. So we popped down to Eurocar parts, got a sump plug,
oh, fucking
six,
hell.
6 litres of oil in, crossed our fingers, started it up, and it started first time, and everything ever went wrong with it. Yeah, and the marshal towed us off the side, and they nearly
Lucky.
had to get the fire extinguisher out because the oil was smoking on the manifold, and he went, "Oh, I'll just tow you to your
Yeah,
trailer. Where's your
yeah,
trailer?"
yeah.
And he says, "Where's your trailer?" And I said, "Oh, we've driven it here." He said, "What are you going to do now?" I said, I'm gonna fix it, and I'm gonna finish this afternoon. What do you think I'm gonna do?" He was like, "No way, mate, no way." And about an hour later, I was like, "Hey, pal, you all right?" That's it. Yeah, um, yeah.
Oh,
We've had a
love it.
few, but
Absolutely love it.
yeah.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, lucky is all I'll say. Lucky on that one, definitely. Right, so let's get into a bit more about you then. So I suppose I think before we get into the time attack, I suppose kind of what was your influence with cars and motorsport? Did you have much as you kind of grew up or got into driving age? What kind of got you into
Um,
cars?
I've always been a petrol head since I was a kid. Or, like I say, toy cars, Matchbox, Micro Machines, but never had much opportunity to do it. A lad I went to school with had a kart, um,
Yeah.
and he raced, but he wasn't that bothered about it. His dad was sort of pushing him into doing it, and we were at Tockwith Circuit, and he was we were quite far on pace, even though I just started. And he said, "Oh, I bet you can't, can you be flat through the S bends?" And he was like, "Well, you can't do that." And I'm like, "I bet I can." And I rolled it over, which is quite a difficult thing to do in a car, I have to say. But I was flat through the S's, then I
Yes.
split the
Yeah.
last curve, and then I never got invited karting with him again. Um, and then that's it, just grew out of there. And then I didn't do anything until my mid-30s when I funded myself to started with track days, went to go started started with track days, and then ended up going racing, and now here we are.
So did you start your track days with the ST150 then, as the base car was, or was there another car kind of first that you got for doing that?
I had as I say, I'm 40 this year, so I'm max power era. First car was a 1.2 Fiat Punto with the slitty headlights, Mark
Yep,
II.
standard back in
Um,
the day. Yep,
yeah, first Mark
yep.
II Punto in the UK on 18s, and I had the
That's
whole.
impressive, actually.
That's it.
Yeah,
I mean, 1.28 valve, 63 horsepower, two huge 4-inch Japanese
yeah,
angled style exhausts. It was custom body kitted. I had the doors welded up and a little
proper.
popper under the wing mirror. It was a proper max power car. Unfortunately, before the days of camera phones, and
Yes,
I don't have a single picture of this car, which still hurts me. And then, yeah, progressed. I always had,
that's a proper car. That.
yeah. And then I had a I've had my license go on holiday once or twice at the DVLA's choice um, for speed related incidents, and so
don't think I've ever heard it referred to like that before.
Yes. And so the ST150 came about because it was the 4th time I'd been banned, and when I got back on the road the 4th time, the fastest car that I could afford to insure was an ST150. So yeah, and it was literally, I
Interesting.
didn't plan it,
So
didn't
that
see a
kind
thing.
of goes back a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Well, not as far
suppose
as
that
you
kind of
think.
goes
What?
back a little bit to what we were saying before about how. Sorry, go on. That bit of legs there. I see you talking then.
Sorry, no, all I was going to say was that it, yeah, I fell into the Ford. It wasn't a choice. It was the fastest cheap car I could afford to insure. There we are. But I've had, nothing mega. Before, the reason I got banned, I had a BMW E61, so 5 Series Estate, and
Uh-huh.
I had that mapped to within an inch of its life. Well, it was mapped so much it used to blow the boost pipe off and go into limp home mode. But you could turn. Oh,
Nice.
yeah, it used to create a boost leak and limp home mode. But I could turn, if you turn the key on and off and turn the engine on and off, it came back on. Um, but there wasn't, like, instance where on a private road in Mexico, I may have been doing like 135 and had to turn the key off, which then stops the steering lock and the brakes, and turn it back on. So the SG150 was probably quite a safe thing.
I think, yeah, that's one way of putting it. It probably was a lot safer and more controllable than that thing. So then, I guess from that, have you found that being more of the track driving focused has changed how you drive on the road?
Massively. You can't compete now if you don't, with MSUK. You can't compete if you are disqualified from
Hmm.
driving, and so as such, I drive like Miss Daisy on the road in order to maintain my. It sounds really cheesy, but I literally save it for the track because there's nothing to be gained.
Yeah. Well, I completely agree with that there. You're right. There is nothing to be gained. And I think as well now, like you said, you turn 40, I'm 38. Like back in the day, the roads as well, and while it's not right that we speed into these things, but the roads were different. The
Yeah,
roads now are so dangerous, and there's so many powerful cars that can't be driven without the electronic aids and all these things on it.
yeah,
In the awareness, I think, of people driving, and we spoke to a driving instructor a few episodes ago, at Sarah Hall, and I think this was a key thing. The awareness of driving and control of driving is sometimes less than it should be, and I
yes,
think when you put that now, it can be quite a dangerous encounter. 100%. Certainly around the areas we live. I mean, I'm Leeds way.
yeah,
I think you're over kind of Bradford way, aren't you? So it can get very busy. So yeah, and that's interesting. I think that's something else, and it's something that I've always thought with motorsport, that where do we drive? And certainly when you're younger and growing up and coming, and there may be the reasons why you want to drive fast. Mine was because of free trauma. It was one of my ways of coping. Was because the faster I went, the quieter everything was. Now I do everything I can to obviously go on the track, and hopefully we'll be on there soon. But it costs so much money. And one of the things I do have is that we need a way to be able to allow younger people and older people to try and get that love and freedom out. Because for me, it was very much a freedom element.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's got a bit to go with that. Okay, so that's interesting. So you'd obviously then got this ST150. You'd made the decision to track days and kind of going through that. So what was it that drew you to Time Attack?
Dead easy, and went to Donington, and was
Hmm.
overtaken down through Craner curves by a little red Mark III MR2 with a hard top that had a Time Attack sunstrip on, and I thought it looked cool, and that's it.
Yeah,
He
that's
went
cool.
past me
I
like
like
I
it.
was stood still,
Cracking
and,
set
and
of
I,
toes.
yeah, it went past me like I was stood still, and I remember it to this day. And I just thought, "What's time attack?" Didn't know anything about it. Went away, learnt about it, and thought, "Yeah, I fancy some of that." And there we are.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I suppose then to if we give a bit of a what is time attack to people that are not aware of it now, I know that origins wise we're looking at a kind of a Japanese influence.
Yeah,
Certainly for me, I kind of came from the drift kind of scene, so obviously time attack kind of came over with that, and I kind of heard about it in Japan, and it's um, what so how would you classify it then, or what was the how would you describe it to the layman?
it's a qualifying session. You are based against the clock. The cars are classified, and you
Mhm.
are out on track at the same time as other cars in your class and similar classes, but you're not directly racing each other. The clock is what counts. And although the fastest time wins, and you are aiming to win within your class or within uh, then to win champion points on the day or championships and trophies, ultimately, and I think this should never be forgotten, is that the idea of time attack is to be faster than you were last time. And the final thing about
Yeah.
time attack is that unlike many or most series championships that are based on individual cars or you have to fit within quite very strict frameworks. Time attack and where it came from in Japan is in
Hmm.
a roundabout way based on modified car culture, and that's where I come from. And
Yes.
so the classes are there on the Time Attack website, but the idea being you could almost put a harness in your road car and a screw-in fire extinguisher and come in the clubman class, and then you could race all year in that car in clubman. You could drive to and from the track, and it'd be fine. And then you go away, and over winter you strip all the interior out and you put bucket seats in it and you put a roll cage in it and you put some basic aero on it, but it's still a small engine and a small car. And you come back the next year in the next class, and you're either competitive or you're not, but you're modifying the car to go up the classes. And then exactly like I do, which we'll come on to, then you're the next year you go away over winter and you supercharge the car, or you turbocharge the car, or you make bigger aero, or you change it to a sequential gearbox, and you go up the classes again. And some of the cars are some people's personal modified cars that they've had for years and years and years, and they've grown with them, and you that the modified aspect appeals to me more
Yes.
personally.
I 100% agree with that. I come from that scene as well. And like through my Skyline days and all that, and that is something I actually struggle with at the minute because I'm in production rallycross. You're
Yeah,
very restricted, but unfortunately, going up to the class of the super modified is, and there will be a video coming up on the channel for those who aren't on YouTube. Go subscribe. About actually the difference in kind of what that entails. But that is something that I think is really good about time attack. And, we're not going to go into all of the structures and everything now. It is something that I think potentially has merit, and I want to potentially when I go to a time attack event, because potentially I'll have just been to Cadwell. Well,
yeah,
this will come out in a couple of weeks. So a couple of weeks ago was Cadwell. Um, and and do some kind of video on the different kind of cars in the series and what time attack is, and I think it's really interesting because like you say you can slowly kind of grow and build that car. The regulations seem to be quite, you can start off, when I say cheap, I don't think anything's quite cheap in motorsport, but entry level wise,
no, see,
and kind
time
of
to be
go as
fair,
far as
time
you want up to the other side.
Yeah, no, I was just going to agree with you that I think as racing goes, time attack is actually a relatively cheap way to start. because the idea is that there's no contact, so there's
Absolutely.
less car damage.
Yeah. Yeah, because even when you do have your door to door, it can be no contacts, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be no contacts.
Exactly.
Certainly in my beloved sport, that's taken with a pinch of salt most of the time. And but even in your general circuit racing, even in your GT racing, where it's very much frowned upon, it still happens, and this is going to happen. And I know in time attack with certain rules on these indications if cars are on a fast lap or warm cool down lap, sort of things like that. So there is an awful lot there for it, which I think is really good. Plus, I think the event as well, it's a massive crowd puller. You have a modified car show there. You've got Time Attack on. You've got Drift Pro on. You've got Racing Hondas on. It is one heck of an event, and the amount of people and coming. I think that's being shown as well with the amount of cars, the tuners who are kind of being involved in it, the drivers to some degree as well. Now, it is a massive, massive event. And it's certainly it's an exciting event, I think, to be a part of as well. I think as a driver, would you kind of say that as well?
Yeah, it certainly is. The crowds are amazing. It's nice to see the people that are into it. Certainly, I think the drifting especially is a big crowd puller. Um, that's it. I suppose in a roundabout way, you've come on to one of the downsides of Time Attack is that for it's quite difficult for the public to understand it because looking at it from the outside, you don't know who's winning.
Mm,
Yes, you have and that is a downside. Yes, you have the
yes.
timing sheets and you can listen to the commentary as much as possible. But unless you are standing and you're watching the sheets on the website, on the timing sheets, you don't know who's winning. And so I suppose that's
True, true. Not thought
but
about
other
that
than
before.
that, people like it. What the crowds do like is they like the the cars. There's some of the pro cars are just unbelievable. And even for cars like mine, the other thing about Time Attack when the shows are, you get a real access to the pit lane. The people are up and down, they're poking around, they're asking questions,
Yes.
and you wouldn't get the chance to do that with any other race series.
No, not at all. I think as well, you put that on there in like the modified car scene as well. It's one of the true shows of, and it's I suppose having the drift cars with that as well because that's that similar kind of culture where they've come from. Is this very much this modified car and there's so much passion and love and it's a similar kind of thing with Rallycross. I like the variation of cars, but you're obviously, like you say, within a restricted class to some degree in terms of it follows a lot of rally principles, so body kits and things like this are kind of, you don't get too much on. It's all arch development and stuff. Whereas in the time attack, it truly is like you can throw so much into the car,
Yeah,
and the aero is crazy, and the builds become crazy, and which I suppose let's get onto your build a little bit then. So obviously it's an ST150. Did you run it originally with the kind of
yeah,
not
yeah,
stockish, but the standard setup from Ford?
yes.
And
So
how did that kind of go, I
20
guess?
badly. 2021. Uh, I had tuned the Duratec to an inch of its life. I had 205 horsepower and something like 180 foot-pounds of torque, which out of
Nice.
a Duratec, good numbers. Uh, and I'd
Pushing it
found
on a stock.
found the
Unopened, I'm
rarest,
assuming.
cams, rare, really rare Caterham inlet, um,
Oh,
rebuilt, yeah. But I did the first event at Cadwell Park. I think it would be 2021. Yeah, it must have been. It was 2021. And I was 10 seconds slower than the winning cars. And I went, well, it's not fast enough. Yeah, that's it.
flipping
Yeah,
heck.
I'm not doing it. So that's when the game swaps that I sacrificed the whole year and just did the K swap.
Yeah, that's interesting. So Andy has an ST150 kind of track day car. I think
Yeah,
he's running about 193 horsepower and he's cammed up and stuff done. But he's kind of at that limit now where, it either needs, even if you're forging it and doing all this kind of stuff to it, there's still a limitation, I guess, in some aspects of that. I have heard of a forged Duratec making nearly 300 horsepower, but
yeah.
in fact, it would have been built by the guy who does all the Rallycross supercars, Julian Godfrey.
All right, yeah.
But it was like absolutely maxed out beyond belief. Um, how reliable that is as well also comes into the equation because really, you've then taken this K swap. Did you go K20 or K24 in the end? Was it K20 we were looking for the
K20.
class one too?
It was a K20A2. I actually bought an EP3 to break,
Yep.
and it was quite a nice car. And so in the end, I kept it and I dailied it for about 5 months and didn't break it. That's it. Um, yeah.
Great car, yeah.
And then, so in the end, right after I had to get rid of that, and then I got a crate engine from VTech Monkeys in Colne. They are one of the country's leading breakers of EP3s, FN2s, all Honda stuff. They race. They actually race ST150s, but they used to race in a lot of Hondas, and they supplied an engine swap that had everything that I needed. And then, as is the way, I went to a bloke I met off Facebook, and he we did it together, and he fitted it in a couple of weeks, and it went in. I got all the parts together. It's a really simple swap if you've
Mhm.
got all the bits, but you need a few really specific bits. But I got did all my research, got all the bits together, and then Rob put it in a couple of weeks.
Nice. That's interesting. I might have to badger Andy to do that as a potential project for us in the future. I think it'd be worth it for a series of videos. Although
Yeah,
he's got other plans at the minute, has he? Bless him. Um, so that's interesting then. So you obviously did that swap. So you took that kind of year out,
yeah.
and then you kind of came in. Did you have to do any other kind of major was suspension setups, anything along that lines, or did it kind of like it was more just the drivetrain and the engine?
There's nothing that I was forced to do with the case swap, but then it just got out of hand, as is what happens. You progress to the limit of things, capabilities, and I improved as a driver.
Yes.
And you then I was
Hmm.
pushed the limits of the the coilovers, and had to get better coilovers and things like that, better suspension. So, which I think is one where you're coming from, sort of rallycross rally background. That's something where people absolutely don't compromise, and it can make or break a car. And I think in
Yeah.
circuit racing, track days, people are very much like, I'll just buy a set of coilovers from one of the big manufacturers. They're 800-900 quid, which is a not inconsiderable amount of money. Don't get me wrong, and put those on and assume that's a good
Mhm,
handling car.
mhm.
It's a better handling car than most stock setups, but it's not a good handling car. The difference between really quality suspension and that sort of thing is massive, and that's it. But unfortunately, as we touched on, that's when the costs go
Yeah,
up.
exactly, yeah, you can be some of I know if you look at freeway suspension, you look at riders, you look at all that, the cost is absolutely astronomical. But everybody I ever speak to when they say to it, "Yep, best modification I ever did. Should have done it earlier." Um, which is crazy when you think. But if you think, how do you transmit other than the tyres, everything else effectively to the tyres to then get onto the tarmac? It's through that
Yeah,
suspension setup. Um,
yeah.
so I think that's a fair point. So obviously you then got into the K swap. So how was that then going into the next season? Was it a noticeable difference?
It was developmental. I really enjoyed my year in the black car.
Mhm.
Uh, First year, you were still nervous. The car had potential on paper, but we chased a misfire for about 4 rounds, if I recall rightly, and it was the map. There was an issue with the map the crossover into VTEC, but we thought it felt for all the world like it was fuel related. So that's the avenue we went down, and we got
Okay.
a swirl pot fitted, and we baffled the tank, and we did all sorts of different bits, and then eventually it was discovered it was the map. So when the map was fixed, it was better, but the black car was always a little bit unstable. When I bought the original ST150, I was the 11th owner, and I bought it in the dark,
Okay.
and it had definitely been in a bump on the rear left quarter, and it was never very
Oh, my.
stable. And especially once it had the K swap in, it was never very
Hmm.
stable. So it wasn't the most confidence in so the K swap with the Duratec. It was fine; you could push it to the limits. But as soon as the K swap went in, the speed went up exponentially, and it always felt unstable. So I had to learn and grow with the car.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, teaching point, kids, don't go buy a car in the dark. Let's not do that ever. Um, so, how did because obviously you were in partnership with KDN. They kind of do a lot of work on the cars, I believe, repping the top there. I love it. So, tell us a little bit about KDN and how did that kind of relationship come about?
Well, I bumped into him at a petrol station, uh, and he had a yellow, and still owns a yellow
Okay.
Civic EG. Uh, and I got chatting to him, and
Oh,
then
quality.
yeah, and then we ended up. He built a gearbox, and then he did some work, and then he did some more work, and they came and watched it. I got them some tickets to Donington in the black car, uh, and they watched, and he said, oh, "I think we should do this, and I think we should do that. In fact, please can we help we build the car for next year?" So that was black car was 2022. We had the full
Perfect.
rebuild of between 22 and 23. And in hindsight, it was more work than any of us had envisaged, especially those guys. Um, I'm a difficult
Hmm.
customer. That's it. But I want what I want. And, uh,
Are you difficult or do you just like what you want?
two things. I like what I want, but I've got very unrealistic timescales.
Hmm.
They're not unrealistic, but they rely everybody to stop doing everything else, including eating or going home or anything, and just fix my car, which I found that people tend not to do after a few weeks. Yeah, they sort of get a bit sick of that, to be honest. But that's but we did have a fantastic year. Um, the lads built a good car. It looks absolutely mint. The difference in the social media attention between the
It
having
does.
a black car and an orange car,
Yeah.
it just went absolutely thing. Even the paint, I wanted a custom orange paint,
Mm.
and we picked it, and I didn't know, and neither did the body shop guy, know that it would take a white clear coat, which was effectively a paint job, and then it's 4 to 6 coats of a translucent orange lacquer, which then decides on the colour. Uh, so effectively, they
Right.
had to paint the car 6 times.
Excellent. I mean, it's worth it because I think the car looks incredible, and
Thank you.
obviously it'll be the thumbnail on anyone will have got one. And I mean, I'm a big fan of the ST150 look anyway, but I just think it looks really, really good, and I can't wait to kind of see it on track. In well, I'm assuming, will you be making this season, or is this season a building again season for next year?
No, look, I'll definitely be at Donington. So that's what, August. Definitely be at Donington. We put it
August,
away.
yeah. So June.
So last year, I ended up runner up in the championship. It was a hard fought battle,
Yep.
but in the end, it wasn't. I was beaten consistently by one particular car, one particular driver. I actually think he broke the time attack record for most amount of points scored in a season because I think he had 8 wins, 8 from 8
Wow.
wins, 8 from 8 first place in qualifying, and 6 out of 8 lap records in the season. So fair play to him. That's it.
Wow.
I was well beaten.
Crikey.
And so that
Wow.
having
Yeah, that's
achieved
impressive.
podium silverware, I wanted a new challenge for the next year, and so I'd always wanted a boosted
Mhm.
K20. It's where we did. I've got a Roadtrex that's as big as my head. It's a 3881, and we will be making somewhere between 400 and 450 bhp at least, and that's on the smaller pulley. We can increase the boost, but there is danger. Anything over
Mhm.
that, and it's not a question of if it'll blow up; it's when it'll blow up because we haven't forged the engine. Uh,
Okay.
and yeah, but I am looking
Yeah, I
forward
was
to
going to ask
it.
that if that was done. Hmm. I mean, it's going to be an insane drive that. So, okay, let's delve into that a little bit then. So you're looking at 400, 450 horsepower. We're unopened K20, which I think is
Yeah,
insane. That I suppose you're going to go a slightly lower compression, so you're going to help against knock and other things like that. But that is insane power to be putting through a stock 2-litre engine, I think. And I suppose that shows partially that quality of the K20 and why everybody goes to them. Power.
yeah, interesting. K20 is a solid engine. They're a bit overdone now, even though I've got one. Having been at Time
Yeah.
Attack, I was at Anglesey, been at Cadwell. Uh, in the pocket rocket class, there's 10 cars and 7 of them are either a K powered or K swap. Uh, and the sound it's interesting and refreshing when you hear a different car, but otherwise, they are solid. But there are, apparently, when you boost them, they blow the gearboxes up. But I'm hoping that the supercharger will be better than a turbocharger
Okay.
because the torque doesn't come in one go.
Yeah, I was going to say you're going to get a more smooth linear torque as well as a bit similar to an NA rather than that boosted all of a sudden hike,
Yeah,
lower end high across. Um, which I suppose would be interesting with your driving of that as well, because effectively, obviously, you've got this massive power. So, you may have to have, I'm assuming, diff things going in there, torque steer, all this, but without the turbo kind of that boost hit, is one of the ideas that may be more of a drivable option as well.
yeah, I would say so, definitely. I'll probably just be in a gear higher when I exit the corner than I would have been previously,
Mhm.
and going faster. Otherwise, it'll be very, very similar. I hope. Either that, or it's going to
Yeah, considerably
try and kill me
faster.
at every corner. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past it when you're trying to put 450 horsepower through the front wheels and turn and brake and all that. It's going to go,
Fine.
but why not? Why not? It'll be fine. I mean, I think it's going to be a wild build.
Yeah,
Obviously, I know we've talked about when it's completed, I want to get over to you because you're not far away either and kind of do a video on it because I think it's going to be insane and I cannot wait. And I also can't wait to hear the noise actually of that K series with that kind of supercharged whine. And
yeah.
I think that's going to be
It
quite an
is.
interesting sound too.
It is a what they call it. It's a the Whiner isn't as much. It's not like a root style, like in the Cooper, Mini Coopers and things like that. When it won't be quite the same
Hmm.
sound because I think they're what they call centrifugal. But yeah, it's yeah. I'm looking
Okay,
forward to
cool.
it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, reasons you went for the supercharger over the turbo. One was the engine, the gearbox, the kind of driving styles. So what other kind of things are you putting into place then with it? Are you going to basically develop this engine and kind of leave necessarily the running gear and chassis as is and then kind of test and or is there more going on with aero? Because I know as you move up the classes you can do a bit more with the aero, I think, in time attack.
Yeah, I actually don't want to talk too much about the aero because it's a little bit secretive still at the moment, and some of it's a work in progress. Um, but as other than
Okay, I
aero,
like that. I like that.
other than the aero, there's not a huge amount different going on. It will just be put it together and see what happens.
Fair enough. Well, I'll tell you what, when we do the vid and everything's on it, then I can show it to the audience on here then, and we'll go crazy on that thing. Yeah, I love it. I know Andrew's going to want to come along as well because he's an ST150. So that's cool. So now, obviously, one thing as we've kind of been going through this, you have obviously had the partnership with KDN, you had the partnership with people before. So I suppose there's always that thing of I mean, is that saying in the built not bought? But I would argue that that's saying even if you're having somebody build it to how you want it to be, it's still being built, not bought. But what's the decision for having things kind of, partnerships with a company on building it rather than do you do much maintenance kind of
No,
work on it
uh,
or do you do anything along that lines?
not at all. I make no bones about it. People take the mickey out of me. I don't know one end of a spanner from another, and to be quite honest, I've absolutely zero interest in learning. It just doesn't. I can
Yeah,
check tire pressures. I can change a wheel. Um, I could probably do brake pads. Probably. Uh, I did when I had a EG. No, excuse me, EF Civic years ago. I did quite a lot on that and spent enough time. I think I was just avoiding my ex-wife, to be honest. But I spent enough time in the cold outside. I just don't like doing it. It just doesn't interest me. But I
yes.
research to the nth degree
No,
every part that goes on, the interaction between the parts, the setup. Um, yes, there is an element of bought, not built, in that these physical hands didn't make it. But it's a hybrid style because I planned it. I know what goes on, and it didn't just happen.
absolutely.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
that's it. I think there's a thing where I saw a thing recently where it was this whole built not bought thing, and it was saying, well, is that really true? Because even if somebody else has built the car in terms of done the work on it, you're the one specifying what you want it. It's your creation, it's your work of art still. I mean, if you take the difference between myself and Andy, so I do mad research into everything, figure everything out, but I've never been much of an engineer and a mechanic, and that's what I'm trying to change actually with the Saxon. One of the things for keeping in production is I basically ripped a lot of it apart and redoing it all. Whereas Andy is kind of different. He doesn't want to be underneath a car in the cold weather when it's pissing it down in England. I get it. I'm also, need more cash, so that sometimes comes into necessity over influence or over want sometimes as well. But I think that's it, and I think that argument of the built not bought is I suppose it's like when people, they want to go Ford v Honda, or if you do you and you hybrid everything together and make everybody hate each other in little aspects. Um, One thing to kind of think, obviously, you're saying K20s being used an awful lot in time attack, but obviously the price of those parts are going up as well. Where do you see that kind of future of the pocket rocket side of things? You've got the NA 2 litre or 1.6 turbo. So where do you kind of see that going in future? Do you think it is going to be just K swaps or these kind of things, or do you think there's going to be something else coming in?
nothing can compete. I wish that something could, but nothing is. It's lightweight, it's powerful, it's reliable most of the time.
Yeah.
But the aftermarket support for mods, although it's expensive, everything is readily available,
Yes.
and there is nothing
Yeah.
comparative really. EcoBoost 1.6, I like. Good engine.
Yep.
Gearboxes are okay. Modifying it is slightly more expensive than it is modding a K series, but you get better results in the end. If I had my time again, I would probably have done that.
Mm,
Interestingly, rather than a K swap. Um, yeah, but
yeah,
350
that'd be
sort of
interesting.
horsepower
Yeah.
out of a EcoBoost and 350 foot-pounds is, even though would be good.
Absolutely, I agree with that. Because I know that there was one point in time where they were looking, I think it was in the regs for 2023, they'd stated that by 2025 you may not be able to do turbo conversions in the
Yeah,
1.6 turbo class. I know that's been removed in the 2024 regs because I was having a look, because it
yeah,
did cross my mind at one point to come away from Rallycross two-time attack with the Saxo, but I've gone back. I have other ideas in future, pending the Mueller, obviously. Um, but I think that's it. It's another one of those things that gives rise to that tuner lifestyle of playing with the car and different elements and being able to plug in different engines. Go ahead and force induction in different ways. So, what class are you moving up to now? Then will it
Club
be
two-wheel drive.
Club two-wheel drive? So, does that separate between front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive, or are you all
No,
in one?
all in one. I
Oh,
wish it was
interesting.
different, but it is all in one. So there's everything from M3s.
That's gonna be interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's quite a few front-wheel drive cars in it though. Interestingly, at Anglesey,
Mhm.
runner-up was
Mhm.
he was third. A good friend of mine was Stuart Summers in the Saxo.
Oh, yes, Supercharged. I think it's
Yes,
well into that one.
yeah,
Supercharged Saxo, heck of a car, white, looks stunning, light, goes like stink.
yeah.
Um,
He's a
yeah,
really, really nice bloke as well.
yeah, I've seen him obviously having a Saxo myself, and seeing that, I've obviously looked at that car. I think it's an absolute beautiful car. It looks really good. I know you've got a few other. I don't know the Spooks 205. Um, I think that's in. Is he still in time attack that car?
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's doing this year, but he was last year. Yeah, there's a few. There's an Astra. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but Club Two Wheel Drive's quite a tough class. 450 with, and I'll be under 1,000 kilos, including me and fuel. So I'll be pretty much at the top end of what the front wheel drive cars are. And things like the M3s and things are a
Hmm.
good deal heavier. So it'd be interesting.
Yes. It really will be because also, so like when you take out in rallycross and you get the front wheel drive and the rear wheel drive mix,
Yeah,
often off the line, the rear wheel drives have that huge kind of benefit, which is something the likes of Jamie Bain, who's 205 and an insane build, is having to chase. I suppose you're kind of mitigating out those elements because you're already going, you're going to be coming in hot to the lap and it's going to be for that lap. So there's going to be pros and cons, I guess, depending on the tracks as well. Whereas, it may be that you might have massive power in a rear-wheel drive car, but still, if it's not been able to put it down and use it effectively, then the light, agile, Fiestas or
yeah,
Saxos, etc., can kind of come alive. So I think it's a really interesting look at different styles of cars, different styles of driving, and different attributes. Because as we all know, just because you add more power doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the performance you expect if it's heavy, if it's cumbersome, and if it's not able to drive. I think that's really interesting. It's going to be a good class. I can see that. So, what kind of limitations are there on that class? And I assume there's still some elements of limitations.
yeah. The same. Aero is actually the same as Pocket Rocket. Nothing more than 100 millimeters from the body. And other than that,
Okay.
there's not a huge amount. No sequential gearboxes. Um, and still on
Yep.
the same tyres. And otherwise, that's about it, really. So it'll be interesting. I'm
Yeah.
looking forward to it
It will
either
be
way.
interesting.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
100%. Yeah, definitely. I think, like you say, the aeros, that's going to be interesting. So you're kind of getting more of the increase in power. I think the sequential gearbox is a fair thing, the difference that they can make, and obviously in rallying and rallycross, you just bang a sequential in it if you've got 15 grand to sling in. And I think that's interesting because also with that H pattern gearbox comes a different style of driving as well when you've got such power. And again, that front wheel drive to rear wheel drive in terms of diff, locking speeds, when you're changing gears, and all this kind of thing. So it's a really exciting class. And yeah, hopefully then. So if you're coming from Donington, I will have to have a look in the calendar as well. Like I
Yeah.
said, we're hopefully going to be up around Cadwell, and we'll see. But that's it sounds exciting. I mean, what's your view long term then? What is Will Bonfield doing long term? Is the Fiesta until you've basically gone all out as far as you can in it? Do you think is there a plan where you want to kind of
No,
switch cars and
I
try
think
again?
front wheel drive will always ultimately be hindered. I'd like to do a different car, probably something rear wheel drive. Use the lessons that I've learnt
Mhm,
along the way, and it'll be interesting
mhm,
to see
mhm.
what that looks like. Uh, but it depends on cost. Motorsport is expensive. Time attack's been
Yes.
expensive, and it's made through choice. I've sacrificed things like holidays and things like that in order to go racing. Uh, whether or
Mhm,
not I can
mhm, mhm, mhm.
consistently do that,
Yeah,
other things might get in the way. But it's
yeah.
really interesting
That's I
when you
think the
go. Sorry, go on.
I was going to say I think that's the thing when you have clubman drivers and clubman motorsport guys that you have to make that. I point myself where you've got to think of the money, you've got other people, or they may want to do things, and it's kind of good to keep your partners on your side. Um, but it isn't a cheap hobby or a cheap love. And we want to strive for better. We want to get faster. We want to improve our racing. We want to improve our reactions. We want to improve the power of the car, the way it's going to handle, the way it's going to, you sound very much like myself where you research elements an awful lot. And sometimes it can be a bit of an imaginary budget going up in the head
Yeah,
a little bit. I mean, I'll probably go through a different build every week. Um, yeah, I think that's good. But I think that'll be interesting as well. It'll be interesting to see, if that happens and you do that swap over to rear-wheel drive, like say, the lessons you've learned, but then a very different style of driving potentially and handling and how that is. Um, I think I think you're an exciting driver because you've clearly got that passion you're pushing and developing through. And I really look forward to seeing you on. And I hope that obviously everybody who's listening on here will follow you, check out yourself, obviously KDN as well. Those boys really seem to know what they're doing over at KDN. I'm assuming they're Honda K Series
yeah.
specialists.
Just
Yeah. So,
not just K series. He very much in love with the B series, and he all nineties
okay.
Hondas really. He can
Yeah.
do all, up to modern stuff, but nineties is what he really likes to do. So
Oh, the old B16s. What an engine that is. Quality. What a car. I know, like, you mean obviously you're from the kind of same era as me, and the VTEC kicks in you, but such a you could never take away. It's a conversation I used to have when I had the Focus was how do we when the owners club was how do we get more younger people to have them, and it was put a B16 in it. That'll work it because
yeah,
1600 Focus didn't really go anywhere, and you had these Hondas like whapping about. But yeah, cool. Well, we're coming up to about an hour, so I think that's it. It's been an absolute pleasure, Will. We will drop your socials below. You are Ghetto Aero on
yeah,
Instagram. That's your main kind of account, isn't it?
yeah,
You're going on there, which is really worth. I would absolutely suggest everybody follows. I do as well. It's a fantastic account. I also just think the Fiesta looks awesome. It goes like stink, and I'm really looking forward to seeing it back on track and seeing the craziness that I feel will be unveiled with a supercharged K20 400 horsepower ST150. I love it. I think it's going to be great. So yeah, thank you very much. We're going to end it here, everybody. Like I said, check out KDN and Will's socials. Get to a time attacking meet. I think we're going to try and do some stuff on time attack for the channel, and we will see you all next week. See you later, everybody.